All right, I'm going to start with a video that I think is going to be really important and kind of set a good core theme that I'll kind of reference throughout my time here, just making these YouTube videos. I have no idea how many of these I'll do, but I've just been feeling kind of an urge to kind of express some of my feelings and emotions about Christianity and some important things to kind of remember about just, I think, things that'll just improve your life, things that have helped my life, things I'm continually working on, and I think some big messages that really help us. And I'm starting off with really the two big tactics the devil uses to ultimately take us away from God, which then essentially takes our souls, sending ourselves to hell through just pushing God out through these two big temptation areas that the devil uses. And I'll put a lot of focus on this channel on the devil because I think that's one of the biggest parts we're not getting in Christianity. That the more as I've gotten older, that's what's really kept me on the straight and narrow, or got me more on the straight and narrow, I should say. And there's no way I'm perfect, but early on as a kid, that's what brought me into the obligation of prayer and really wanting to pray was the fear of God, and not a fear of the devil, but fearing of that God was real and the devil was real. And there was such a thing as temptation, and this was really important stuff. And it was only as I got older and modernism kind of creeps in our lives, and I start these two tactics I'm going to talk about actually crept in my life, where I started overthinking things and maybe thinking, well, God's just always forgiving as long as I just as long as I believe in Him and I just say, I'm sorry every so often, even though I keep repeating the same activities in the past, I'm going to be forgiven, and that's that. But this is part and parcel for some of the two tactics the devil uses. So I'm going to start in no particular order with the first tactic. And also, I should say, I summed up these two areas. I mean, there's tons of articles you could read about some of the big tactics the devil uses to ensnare us throughout the Bible and just in current times too. But I think these two areas really encapsulate everything, kind of two big areas. Okay, so in no particular order, they're both equally important, but equally two primary tactics you guys can use in the war against the devil and Satan, essentially. One of them is confusion. All right, so confusion on the grandest and even simplistic scale. Both these things separate us from God. Think about that, and just again, take us away from living out a life of focusing on Jesus, trying to follow in His works, and trying to be more like Him, getting to know Him better. So the confusion is the idea of as a kid, we try and keep things kind of simple, and I think that's part of the mindset we need. The Ten Commandments, very simple rules just to follow, just laid out there, black and white, kind of follow these rules. But confusion on as an adult, as we get older, we start overthinking, we start getting quote unquote knowledgeable of the world and of science and things. We start thinking, well, questioning, is God even real? Or we start living in the modern world, not coming back to biblical roots or early church fathers and listening what the core foundations of Christianity were, and keeping those truths, that we start manipulating and turning God and Jesus into what we think He should be. And again, we get kind of confused. Well, was that just Old Testament stuff, or is even some of the Jesus teaching in the New Testament? He didn't really explicitly say this or that, but I can infer that he's just he's just a general nice guy. He's all accepting, and that's kind of it. And that's not the case. In fact, I just had a discussion with somebody about this where, they didn't really give it too much thought. And that goes back to, again, confusion, just not really thinking too much, or thinking too much about the world, and again, losing sight of our simple mission to love, serve, and be like God. So that's that thing, and I could go on forever about this, but I want to keep this video fairly quick. But I want you, again, it can be confusion on the biggest level, thinking about the world and the universe, to confusion to a very simple level of you don't know what to do with your life, and you're kind of confused and kind of spinning the wheels that way, creating anxiety and fear, which again takes us away from focusing on God, which is a nice clear-cut path. If you focus on that, our life is made nice and simple, but yet one of the best ways we can live our life through a nice moral code that ultimately will make us feel happier at the end of the day. The second big tactic is distraction. Again, I don't know. I almost wanted to say this might be number one, maybe in our culture, but I think that really confusion and distraction go hand in hand, because it's very easy for us to get distracted and then eventually get confused right after that. I can give you many examples, but you guys can think for yourselves on that one easily. But the easiest thing of distraction, and ultimately, right, what does distraction do? It just distracts us away from God, right? And that's probably number one. If you ask most people, I know it's a constant battle for myself and most people. We get up in the morning. We got, if you, especially like me, I have kids. You got your kids. You're looking at, also, I'm not going to lie, you're looking at, there's entertainment distractions you want to have, or you're distracted with kind of selfish things where I got to have my, whatever, your morning ritual, and you're distracted from taking care of your family. Obviously, the big one is essentially, we're talking about distraction from focusing on God, spreading God's word, trying to focusing on His, living that moral life. But we're living in this modernist world where entertainment is everywhere, right? And we can look at that form of entertainment, and you guys know this, right? It's by and large, and it's very much secular entertainment that, if anything, does not promote any of the moral Judeo-Christian teachings that we kind of focus on. Most of entertainment, right, is kind of the idea of self-serving entertainment. These are all stories that are all meant to kind of grab us with either gossip or fear. These are all things that, again, spiral into confusion, but just distract us and pull away from God. I mean, if you're always on your phone checking social media, or you're distracted with the bombardment of ads that come in every way that make us think about something else, you're distracted by money. Obviously, porn is huge and a big, huge temptation for people. Sports, entertainment, the constant binging of streaming services, video games, all these things are injected in our lives, and not just in a Christian view. If you're not a Christian, you can just think of your own lives of creating, not doing what you really want to do, what's going to really make your life better from a nice satisfaction standpoint of living your life with feeling like you kind of are working towards something, even something very simple, like just having a nice moral code of, resisting simple temptations and not giving in to every kind of worldly kind of urge. That's part of distraction, but that's the biggest thing. Confusion and distraction are the two big things the devil uses to take us away from God. So what are the things that we can do to do about it? In many videos, I will go into great detail about these things and why they're so important. But ultimately, I mean, the simple answer is we got to keep injecting God as strategically as we can. I say strategically because we're in a world where God is constantly being pushed out. And we got to make things kind of simple. We got to, at the very least level, we got to keep some sort of form of spiritual training every single day and be creative of how we inject it in there, whether that's symbols in the household. I know for a while, like my wife, coming from a background of having zero religious background, didn't really like the idea of me putting crosses in the house or having a lot of religious stuff. They thought she thought like, well, it looks too religious, and I had to kind of talk to her about that. It's still something I want to do more of, but it's really our role to inject as much of Christianity into our lives. Whether that's, I'm not saying it has to be always these pure Christian like music and movies is all we watch, but this is part of distraction. Is when you watch something and if you're kind of concerned, well, should I be watching this or listening to it? We can go back to these two things. Are they making us more confused, and are they distracting us? If they are, then push them away. And you might say, well, how can you always find something that's, a Christian theme when it's not Christian? Well, the theme is the ultimate theme of sacrifice. If there's anything that's a medium that makes you think about keeping your moral values high, avoiding temptation, this will be a whole discussion I'll get into later. But the point is, we have to have some level of discernment throughout the day of all the things we watch on purpose, with the gauge of putting Christ center in our life and making sure that we're living that as a part of our life every single day. So that's it, the two big tactics, and I can go on forever about this. I'm just going to stop it here. Confusion and distraction. If you guys have any questions or comments, definitely put it in there. I'm really curious to see some examples in your everyday life about this. I know I got plenty, but I want to kind of keep this short and sweet. So hope you guys enjoy it. I'll be posting more soon. Thanks.